Hi, my name is Allie Schmidt. This is my dad, Dan. He owns Catron's Glass.
Thanks, Allie. Things like doors and windows go into making a house. But when it's your home, you expect more, like the great service and selection you'll get from Catron's Glass. Vinyl replacement windows from Catron's come with a lifetime warranty, including accidental glass breakage replacement. Also ask for custom shower doors and many other products and services. Call 962-1636. Locally owned with local employees for nearly 30 years.
Catron's Glass, the clear choice.
Welcome to the BeTempered podcast, where we explore the art of finding balance in a chaotic world.
Join us as we delve into insightful conversations, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you navigate life's ups and downs with grace and resilience.
We're your hosts, Dan Schmidt and
Ben Spar.
Let's embark on a journey to live our best lives.
This is BeTempered.
Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the BeTempered podcast, episode number
16.
16. I feel like we just did 15.
I feel like it was today.
I thought you were going to switch shirts.
Oh, I thought about it.
Nobody's watching anyways.
True.
We've got podcast faces.
Yep.
Right?
So everybody keeps telling me you got a radio voice. What about my face?
Yeah, that too. Well, hey, good. Welcome again. Today, we thought it would be good to hear the story of our producer.
Executive producer.
I knew that was coming.
No, I'll leave that out.
Kevin Shook is the creator and founder of the Global Media Enterprise. And, we're grateful to have Kevin come in and tell his story. I think it's going to be pretty impactful for a lot of people. So, Kevin, welcome to the BeTempered podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it's an honor.
We're excited to have you and to hear your story. So there's going to be some things in this story. I think it'll probably going to be difficult for some people, but I think it's important for people to hear because just like last week's guest, Justin, going through, divorce and being in some dark places, I know you've been there as well. And, it's a battle that you face. So for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about you growing up and all that good stuff.
Well, I'm Kevin Shook, and like you said, Global Media Enterprise. Sounds fancy, but originated as That Drone Guy. So it is That Drone Guy LLC, DBA, Global Media Enterprise.
Nice.
I like it.
I like it.
Random fun fact. So I grew up Lynn, Indiana, just north of here, small town. Cornfields and whatnot. Graduated with 50 people. Barely graduated. F in English, obviously, as you can tell.
But D for diploma.
There we are. Yeah. But D for diploma.
There we go.
And a WTF that they gave me one. I still don't know how. Yeah, that math. If I could do math really well, I'd try to figure out how I got a diploma. But so, kind of like last week, divorced household. So parents, mother worked 3-4 jobs at a time just to support me. I ate a lot of food, that was a big appetite, but, father, in the picture, but, he was actually, when he was born, well, let's start with, I grew up in a family full of addictions and, smoking, drinking, everything, just everything. Because that was how they were raised, So no one broke the cycle. No one knew how to break the cycle. No one went to college. That was unheard of. So father was born, grandma had him, and she was on a birth control. So if you can imagine, gosh, 50, 60, well, about 60 years ago, side effects on some of these medications, because we still have bad side effects
For sure.
on a lot of medications. So she was on a birth control when she had him. So he was born oxygen deprived and he wasn't supposed to live. So therefore, with that came some brain damage.
Okay.
Right. So, about the personality of a 13-year-old, my whole entire life, but still loving, So they divorced when I was probably 2 or 3 years old, maybe, you know. And it was one of them situations where, like, you're the bad parent, they're the bad parent, they're the bad parent. So I grew up in the middle of that shit the whole time. Oh, so.
No, you're good.
Okay. So, I mean, you guys, I could get this canceled probably, right?
That'd be awesome.
A big risk right here.
You're fine.
We'd go viral.
Yeah. But so anyways, grew up in the middle of that, which, I mean, both loving parents still and everything. And,
But a toxic environment.
very toxic family life. Whether they meant it, I don't know if they really meant it. It's all they knew.
Right.
Drinking, smoking, relying on the government.
Yeah.
It's all we knew. And drugs, you know. But all of that's drugs.
Yeah.
Alcohol's drug, smoking's drug.
Yep.
Instant gratification.
Yeah.
But so I grew up in the middle of all of that. And then, so I was a party animal. I mean, starting at 16, I was drinking. You know, I was going to the place my parents actually met, called the Triangle in Greenville, Ohio.
Oh, yeah. I know. Where that's at.
All right. Do tell. No. So
I've been by it.
yeah. On the way to get maid rights.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
On the way to get maid rights. But so, you know, there you could get in when you're like 15
Yeah.
and they put a stamp on your hand. But you could drink there. So I partied there and then we would drive back, you know, drinking and driving, 16 years old, you know, and it was wild. So that was the whole entire childhood. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I go through school. I was a shithead student. Couldn't hardly retain anything I read because I wasn't interested. So I get through junior high. I didn't do any sports till my junior year. Some friends were like, I mean, I was just a big fat dude. I didn't really do much. Nothing really like, you know. They talked me into wrestling. I was like, what the? All right, what do I do? And they're like, well, come to conditioning. We start conditioning. And if you can think of like Bobby Hill and spandex, that's what's going on here. So I meet at the high school and we go, they're like, well, we're going to run. I'm like, we're going to do what? Where? And yeah, we had to run like miles the first day. So, I mean, I was probably like 275 to 260. They wanted me to wrestle 215.
Oh,
yeah, because we already had a heavyweight.
okay.
But that was my junior year. So I was going to be running. But so we're just running, and me and like about half the team, we were like so over it. By the time we got halfway over, we had someone meet us with a pickup truck. They met us with a pickup truck and took us the other half, and then we just ran this quarter mile. And we're like, and it was still hard, right? And then like I think the next conditioning, we tried splitting. We like ran through the cornfield instead of going around it. We ran through all of these fields and neighborhoods and trying to cut it off.
Yeah. Did you get to 215?
I did.
Did you?
Holy cow.
I did, yeah. It got crazy. It got real wicked crazy. So my first match, I was like 215.8. So I was over in the morning before we left. So I was in the back of the bus, like whole mind shift thing. I was in the back of the school bus doing push-ups with trash bags on and spitting in a water bottle.
So here you are, 275-pound kid
Yeah.
who's cheating on running ever many miles. And they're telling you, hey, we want you down to 215.
Yeah.
How do you get from that to 215?
You gotta want to.
So you found a passion.
I did. It was kind of, and this is where this whole thing's gonna be wild, because this has been like this,
Yeah.
my whole
Up and
life
down, up and
since
down.
then. Yeah. Yeah. I found a passion. Like I was like, I mean, I started to see like a vein in my forearm and stuff, and I was like, oh shit, this is crazy. So, I got down to 215, wrestled 215 that year, my junior year, and then I sucked. We ended up getting another 215, and he beat me in wrestle outs all the time. So I was like, whatever. But it was still fun because it gave you some purpose.
Yeah. And
then I knew my senior year, I knew that we weren't going to have a heavyweight. So I'm like, now's my time to eat. So I think I pumped out. And that, between my junior and senior years, when I really started hitting weights, I got up to, I wanted to get back up to like, because at 215, I was just weak. I was real weak. I got up to 240, and I wrestled 275.
Okay.
But I didn't make it to anything.
Did you have any support from home? Did they come watch you, cheer you on, encourage you?
Yeah, Mom did. Dad, whole different story. Like, we're talking, had a headache during my graduation, didn't come or something shit. So yeah, it's just weird stuff.
Yeah.
Just a lot of weird things there. And a lot of that was, there's anger there and everything else. And then a lot of that I find in myself but I can recognize it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it I have to like fight down.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Mom came a lot, and it was good. We had something to look forward to on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
With wrestling meets and stuff.
And it gave you purpose.
Mm-hmm. It gave me purpose.
So you get through wrestling, you graduate?
Graduated. My senior year, the whole time I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then everyone else is going to college. And I'm like, well, I can't even spell college, for one. For two, we don't have the money.
Right. For
three, my grades are FFFF almost.
Right.
They've fluctuated, but so I wasn't getting a scholarship. So it's like, I'm not. So that's what's crazy. In the midst of all of my shit in my senior year, I was like smart enough to realize I'm not just going to make my mom try to work a 17th job so I can go to college for something that I don't even know what I'm doing yet.
Right.
So that was like kind of weird, but I always want to be a fireman. I knew they don't have to go to college. Always want to be a fireman. So my senior year, my friend Bobby, he was like, hey man, there's this Taco U course or Taco U program. Take a course on us at Ivy Tech. And he said, he's like, why don't we take the EMT one? He said, that'll help us be firemen. And at that moment, I was like, I don't want to do medical. Like, no fireman actually does want to do medical shit either. Right. So it's funny. But so my senior year, I had to stop wrestling midway through. And it was bad. My coach was mad. But I wasn't going anywhere with wrestling. But if I stopped wrestling and took this Taco U while I was a senior, it was paid for. So Mom didn't have to pay for my EMT course. Yeah. So by the time I graduated, I was an EMT. Okay. So then when I graduated, they gave me a diploma. I'm like, cool. And then I took we didn't have national registry, but my state was EMT.
Okay. So you graduated high school and you're an EMT.
Mm-hmm.
So then what?
I worked in a factory, and then because you couldn't be a full-time EMT like right away, it's really hard to find one of them jobs.
Right.
So then I did part-time at Randolph County EMS.
Okay.
Starting in 2005.
Okay. And then throughout this time, what's your life look like beyond work? You still partying? Mm-hmm. Having a good time.
Yeah.
And you become, you're doing the EMT thing on a part-time. Eventually you become a firefighter, right? How far after the 2005, 6, whatever those years are when you get that opportunity?
Well, and I would say 2007, I became full-time EMT at Rural Metro down here. So, a lot of experience for minimum wage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like public safety overall is minimum wage, but this was like minimum wage. Like you had to work you had to basically work 4 days straight. I would like this. Do you remember this building down in the gorge?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was actually condemned years and years and years and years ago, but we were allowed to operate in it, and we rented it for like $1 from the county.
Jeez.
And like literally, if you sat in the bathroom, there was a crack. You could see through the brick mortar and cars going down Sim Hodgin, right?
Give you something to look at.
Yeah. But you would live there basically for, most people would be like 48 hours and done, but 48 hours then might make you like $400, if that, barely.
Right.
That's on the high end. But then I spent my time at Rural Metro, and then 2008, I got a job as a civilian EMT at Indianapolis Fire Department. So then I moved to Indianapolis and lived downtown.
Okay.
Now, this is a point in this podcast where if we move on, we might get you canceled. Downtown Indy.
It's interesting.
No, you're good. This is your story, man.
Downtown Indy. But no, so I lived over there 2008 to 2012.
In Indy.
Yeah, Highland Avenue off Washington, near East Side. So exactly a mile east of the monument.
Okay.
And I worked as an EMT. And most of my area was like Post Road.
Okay.
Midhofer, 42nd, 30th. The roughest area, highest crime rate, highest poverty rate, everything else. And then, so we had 4 ambulances on the east side. We had 4 ambulances on the north side, like 86th Street. So you're totally flipping your patient, the demographics.
Yeah.
Which was good and healthy because north side, sick old ladies that were really sick that really needed you. East side, people shooting each other.
Yeah.
So, man, you would see, it was wild. It was wild. But I'm glad I went and did that because I feel like that made up for me not going to college. I got out of town. I went to a bigger city. I learned a lot about diversity.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about adversity.
Yeah.
Because I seen these families in poverty. We've been going into some of these apartments, 42nd Midhofer, that the only thing you could consider furniture in their house was the really nice dog bed for their dog, because they would take so much care of their dog. They love their animals, but they didn't have anything going on in the house.
It's amazing to me to hear you talk about being an EMT when we hear your kind of story growing up. I mean, you saw a lot of things. You've seen a lot of things in your life that you can't unsee, and it's more of a service than it is. I mean, it's a job. Don't get me wrong, but it's a service, right? You're providing a service, and you're taking care of people who are in need and who need you probably in a lot of cases to save their lives. So, why an EMT with your background? What made you want to do that?
Man, I think I felt that I always had a purpose in life to help people, to help other people, because I was so fucking broken.
Okay.
And not gonna lie, I still am a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you hear success stories and everything else, and I feel like sometimes there's a misconception there because somebody, like, I'll never say I'm recovered, because I think that I would be putting myself on a pedestal of saying I'm not open to failure anymore.
Right.
Like I think we're all recovering. I think everyone's recovering because everyone's trying to improve. Right. So I think I was filling a lot of voids and emptiness by helping other people. And that's what was really cool about it. And I got to see a lot of people that were a lot less fortunate, that couldn't, that didn't have their high school diploma or couldn't go get a job or anything else.
So kind of put life in perspective a little bit for you, where you're not saying, why me? Why was I raised in this life with these parents and, dealt the cards that I was dealt? And then you look at these other people and think, you know what? Wasn't that bad.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So you're in Indy, and that ends. Why does it end, and where do you go from there?
So Indy, the first 2 years, party animal. I'm downtown. I'm single. I live alone. Party animal first 2 years. Because like in Indianapolis, no matter what kind of music you're into, no matter what, it has it, right?
Yeah.
The last 2 years, guess what? No matter what kind of gym you like, no matter what kind of workout equipment you like, it's there.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how when you change, when you experience a paradigm shift, how the resources are there. You're just not looking for them. So 2008 to 10, wild, EMT, 2010 to 12, bodybuilding. I swear to God. So my only friends out there, I didn't know anybody in Indy. So I got this job as a civilian EMT. So my only friends are the firemen.
Yeah.
People that I'm working with. Because as a civilian EMT at IFD, we were same uniform, same bosses, like same house duties, same hours. You just get a civilian perf and you're paid a little less,
right.
Whatever. But a lot of the subs, which are the firemen that floated throughout all the houses, they weren't like comfortable making friends, trying to, sit there and talk to their lieutenants and everybody else on like this kind of basis. So we tend to bond because we're the bottom of the barrel people. Yeah. So we would help each other make the dinners for everyone and stuff like that. So some of the people I got to know there were just really motivational. Lights Out Lytle, Chris Lytle, UFC fighter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's a fireman there. Shamar Bailey, UFC fighter.
Okay.
So they both went through Ultimate Fighter, and Shamar didn't make it, but he still got a contract. Won a fight, lost a fight, and then UFC, you got to win your fights to stay in the UFC.
Right.
So he didn't make it, but
those are the guys you're around.
Yeah, that I'm around 24 hours, every third day. And then a lot of other people that were just really cool and stuff like that. So it kind of helped me shift gears. And then I knew there was like this natural bodybuilding, OCB, drug tested, mother approved is what I called it, coming up. And then I was back, because I partied and everything else. And so I was back to like fat Bobby Hill, 280, 290.
I just keep seeing Bobby Hill in my mind.
So I spent a year and a half and I got down to 189.
Wow.
And June 18th, 2011 was my first show, OCB. And it was wild. And back to we talking about parents and stuff. So like none of my family really seen me much during this whole process. And I'm out there. I don't know anything about nutrition or working out or anything like that. My first show. So I'm out there just eating chicken breast, broccoli, and sweet potato for like 3 meals. And then going to bed. And then I am chewing the hell out of this dessert gum. Do you remember the dessert gum that was out for a while? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Apple, like apple pie, cherry pie. And
so that was fulfilling your sweet tooth.
Yep. Okay. So I was just living on this, right? and watching Jay Cutler YouTube, the real Jay Cutler, the bodybuilder, not the football player. Yeah. The real Jay Cutler. Yeah. Watching his YouTubes. And that's what really I want to be like Jay. I want to be like Jay, although I know what it takes to be like Jay and to be the number one bodybuilder. And I wasn't going to get on chemicals and all that because I wasn't going to be number one.
Right.
So, I told all my family, like, I got you tickets and everything else. And Dad was like, is your mom going to be there? I'm like, yeah, probably. He's like, well, I'm not coming. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's just that whole personality thing again.
Right.
But, so some of the family came out or whatever. It was kind of cool. The paramedic, Christina, she was my paramedic, kind of like my sister. She came and with the family and stuff. And then, man, we just smashed. I think I ate 3 cheesecakes that weekend. Yeah. And it wasn't like Cheesecake Factory. No, I just ran to the grocery store real quick.
And so this is before your first This was your first competition.
I was after the first one.
So you got done and you're like, oh boy, I'm ready for some.
Yeah, and that's just part. So that goes back to that addictive instant gratification personality that I've always had.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there always had to be something.
Right.
But after that, I'm like, that really, really, really sucked. Although they put me in magazines and all kinds of shit. So I studied through NASA, National Academy of Sports Medicine, to get my personal trainer cert. Although I didn't want to train anybody, I just wanted to figure out what I was doing, like, because I didn't want to just eat chicken and broccoli.
Right.
So
every day. Yeah.
I studied all of this stuff and learned about macros and measuring your food and everything else. So then my next 2 shows were better, but I wasn't in it as much. My head wasn't really into it.
Yeah.
I think because it was one of those things, like, I just want to see if I can do it.
Right.
So I think my best one was in 2011, but yeah.
So you get through that stage of your life, and with an addictive personality, something is next, right? Or do you continue down that path?
Well, I met a girl in 2012.
Okay.
So she was competing too. I met her at the gym, Southside Anytime Fitness. So I met her at the gym, flirted with her a little bit, whatever. We dated some, and I remember a lot of this stuff. This is crazy. We were both dieting, which, like, I don't know about y'all's marriages and stuff. They're probably pretty strong. You could probably diet with your few significant others. When you're just dating somebody, don't diet and at the same time, because you're both irritable. Yeah. So it didn't work. It was hard. It was challenging. And then, so we eventually broke up, and she married and had kids with her personal trainer.
Okay.
But they just got divorced, and me and him's actually really good friends. But they're like right now in the divorce. So
okay.
I'd tease him like, "Oh, I got you." But
so good. So when do you come back to this area?
I remember that phone call. So I'm walking downtown from Anytime Fitness to my house, and somebody in Winchester called. Ope, that's his nickname, Ope. He's at the Winchester Fire Department, and I knew him. I mean, I grew up around there, and when I was in high school, I did like a 1-day ride along with him, right? Only they don't do anything. Well, they didn't at the time. It wasn't busy at all. But so he got to know me or whatever. But he called me one day, and I'm walking home from the gym, and he's like, "Hey man, I got a question for you." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Do you want to come home?" I'm like, "No." Absolutely not. Like I'm walking, I'm looking around at all the towers and stuff. And I love it. I'm like, "No, why? What?" Don't speak that juju on me. And he said, "Well, we have a position open with the fire department in Winchester, and none of our part-time people can pass the psych test." I'm like, "Well, that sounds like a you problem."
Yeah.
Why are you calling me? So y'all crazy, literally.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I mean," he said, "full-time with a perf. Perf 77, which that's the pension, you want to get into as soon as you can and stuff. And always want to be a fireman." And at that time, the hiring processes were far and few between because we were still on that end of the tax caps.
Okay.
So budgets weren't always there to hire. And then I think I went through a few processes and I didn't fare well on them out there. So I was like, "Oh man, can I phone a friend and call you back? Like I need to talk to somebody that can give me good advice." So I had some mentors out there at the fire department at IFD, and they were like, "Dude, you need to get in a pension. Just wherever the fire job is, take it. Get in a pension." So I went back to Winchester, Indiana from Indianapolis.
Yeah, that's a big change.
Huge.
Yeah.
They're not the same size.
Not quite. So that was wild. They gave me this big farewell dinner and everything else, and I was still kind of a shithead. during the dinner, my last shift out there at 45s on the east side, I mentioned it. I was like, I should mark out a service for like lack of interest or something. And I was joking. And they were like, oh, no, you're doing that in the morning. And and like my superior was like, no, you're doing that. I'm like, and he came back the next day to made sure I did that.
Really?
Yeah. So I marked out a service for lack of interest. And then I hit the ground running. Like my truck was already running and I had it all packed up. This went across the waves of the whole Indianapolis Fire Department. And they said, because it was, I'm not like a great person, but they said the messages were hitting that NDT all day long saying, that was epic, that was amazing, that was. Because it wasn't IFD EMS anymore. It was Indianapolis EMS, which is Wishard. So the service kind of downgraded.
Okay.
They merged us. They threw us to Wishard in 2010.
Okay.
So left that part out. But that's why everyone was like, oh, I hate this place.
Yeah.
Mark out a service for lack of interest. But if it was IFD, that would have been a whole different story. But so I came back to Winchester.
Okay. So you're Winchester
Randolph.
and you're a firefighter now. I mean, your dream, right?
Yeah.
And how was it a dream? Was it everything you thought?
It was epic. So the new hires were always put with the chief. So it's a combination department, and at that time, just 2 people on duty, and then the rest. So what happens is, you have a pager like a volunteer, and if you're off duty, whatever, that's fine. But if there's something that happens and you respond, you get paid or whatever. So it's kind of like you can get overtime. But so I was with the chief, and I meet this guy, and like he's straight from the John Wayne. He's straight from the John. Has a high cut, still has the electric tape on the glasses, chewing on a cigar.
Yeah.
Every day he would chew on this big cigar, right? Like you just can't make this stuff up. And he was like, welcome to the platoon. Oh, shit. I'm so screwed. So I thought this was going to be disaster. I mean, because we were complete opposite people.
Right.
I mean, I'm just some millennial, wants to be a fireman.
Oh, yeah.
And I got this guy, and it's like, straight out of the John Wayne movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And throughout my time up there, like, because he got ambulances up there, right? Because he had a pivotal moment where all the ambulances in the area were out and a lady fell or whatever. So he wanted to get ambulances. So he started the BLS service up there, and we were just backup, basically. So if there were no ambulances from the services, we would take an EMS run. And I already had all this experience as an EMT and stuff. And, of course, he's a chief, so he's not going to be in the back of the ambulance writing a report. He's going to drive. Right. So I got this. Just drive me. But, man, we saw, like, even in Winchester, I had a good arterial shooting, a bleed with him and stuff like that. And he's like, Shooky, that was crazy. He's chewing on a cigar and stuff. But I introduced him to shorts because, old school firemen, old school police, have to wear pants. And introduced him to shorts. I'm like, oh, yeah. I said, just don't kneel down. If you just know where you're kneeling down.
Yeah.
And it was like this whole, like, everyone's like, how'd you get him to allow us to wear shorts? I'm like, I don't know. I just told him about it. Right.
Yeah.
And like the whole morale was like super positive and stuff.
Yeah. Changed.
So, yeah. So we caught, so in Winchester, you're more likely to die as a fireman than you are Richmond or Indianapolis because there's 2 people.
Yeah.
So Richmond's understaffed. There's only 3 people on the engines. They need to be 4.
Yeah.
Right? So you got 2 people, and one's driving an engine and another one's driving an engine. So like one might catch a plug or whatever, but we did some crazy shit together that when we would sit down later and I'm like, how did that work? because I remember we called a house fire on Franklin, and I took out the first engine 6, and in the whole theory with the second guy is to move the ambulance out of the way and get another engine out. But we had that plan because he wants to give me time to get there and tell him where to come in at and stuff like that. So, so it's kind of planned to have a delay between the two trucks. So I just grabbed my own hydrant, meaning I threw it in park, took the 5-inch, wrapped the plug, and then I drove down the street where all the flames are coming out.
Yeah.
Because I'd only do that if I saw a lot of flames right away. I'd grab my own plug, and then later on, whoever would come up would hook it up, and then we got more water. And then, he got there and pulled the booster line, busted a window, and then blitzed it from the outside.
And blitzing means
blitzing means spraying it down from the outside, like hitting it from the yard or whatever. There's all kinds of slang, but we knocked this thing down that looked like the whole house was involved. And by the time other guys were showing up and putting their packs on, 90% of it was down, just from hitting it from that window.
Really?
Because luckily the doors were shut inside, so it didn't spread.
Okay.
So they just had to go in and mop it up.
That's got to be a pretty intense thing, fighting a fire like that.
Yeah.
Your adrenaline's got to be pumping, and then obviously, are there people inside? All those things. I'm sure there's a protocol you got to go through, right? Mm-hmm. But that's got to be pretty intense.
It is, and they had one recently, which was just crazy to hear about, because anytime you hear trailer fire, trailers go really fast.
Quick. Yeah.
And they actually rescued somebody, and how they did it was they quick thinking, and they cut a big hole in the wall from the outside.
They got out
and pulled them out up in Winchester. So that was crazy cool. But.
Yeah. So Winchester, what's next after Winchester?
I thought it would be a great idea to transfer to Richmond.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wanted to be a paramedic. They had a mandatory paramedic program down here. So, at the time I was like, hey, good idea, because that means that they'll pay for it, pay you to go to it. Everything's covered. But the details weren't all stamped out. The fine print wasn't there and everything else. So in 2016, I transferred because I was in Perm 77 up there. So you can just transfer that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I transferred to Richmond and moved down here.
Bigger city, bigger opportunity, probably financially in your mind, and right?
In my mind, yeah.
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 So you get here. What's your personal life look like outside of work?
Not a whole lot going on, really. I'm still it's still ups and downs, ebbs and flows.
Drinking?
Yeah.
Partying?
Yeah.
That was always a part of your life.
Was just, weekends.
Just kind of a staple. Yeah. So you get to Richmond. Things aren't like you thought they would be.
Heck no. I caught that one.
Yeah.
I try.
Long E.
I try. See, I try. Absolutely not. Unfortunately, as with generational gaps and everything else, you still have very poor leadership or dictatorship for the most part. Very unfortunate. A lot of people have ran through this cycle down here. Lost a lot of good people, and but yeah, so I come down here. A lot of things. There's not really transparency. There's really not a plan. All we know is we have ambulances. These ambulances need to make money so we can have nice fire trucks, nice training grounds, that kind of stuff. We do have a problem. General funding across the whole state is low, right? The state of Indiana has a problem of overspending and having way too many state agencies that don't need to exist. So we need to reallocate. So what happens is, instead of making that the state's problem,
and make it the local municipality's problem.
Right. So instead of going this way and putting it on the council and the council putting it on the state, no, we'll figure it out. And then so we use EMS, which does stand for Emergency Medical Services. We use it for extra money source.
Okay.
So that's how it's looked at in the fire department.
Okay.
Right. The people running it don't work it. Can't spell paramedic, but forcing paramedic classes, whatever. So I was way too connected amongst people in general. And it kind of like got me pretty bad, especially with the one particular chief. Fabricated conversations that we like. I was trying to figure out, when am I going to paramedic school? Where am I going to paramedic? That would be great to know, right? So they're just trying to find random paramedic schools to send people to. And so there was some like misinformation put out there, and they were like, well, you have to do it within 5 years. So I'm like, I'm going to catch the next one.
Yeah.
And that didn't go well. So at the time, they were still ordering people in on days because no one wanted to be there because of the EMS and the way they were running it, because they were running transfers. So what you're not supposed to do as a public safety entity is take a bunch of transfers, but there's profit to them.
Okay.
So like your Redline EMS, and those are all private agencies that are solely ran on that stuff, right? Well, we saw money into it. So guess what we're going to make you do in addition to all the 911 calls? You might end up in, I think Cleveland was a transfer, and this is a 911 truck. So many times, one of 3 of the ambulances would have to go to like Cleveland or just for some random place, right? Because it made money.
Okay.
But to the city, they saw a cool budget. They saw this dude's giving money back. Yeah. This dude's giving money back from the general fund for like sanitary and stuff. It was like, so you're taking the bottom of the people and pushing them as hard as you can push them, and just ruining their fucking lives.
Yeah. So for you, that was where things started to spiral, right? You got the stress, you've got, obviously things you don't agree with that's going on. And what happened?
I did not handle it well. So every adult has stress.
Yeah.
Everybody, kids have stress, right?
Yes.
So it's all outlet. It's all how we handle it, right? So I handled mine with alcohol. Instant gratification, strip clubs, whatever. Anything to make me forget about where I worked. And then, you're into paramedic class now. Finally, I got into paramedic class. They let me go to Eskenazi, which is in Indianapolis, which was my stomping grounds. So that kind of helped, right? But meanwhile, you still have this back here, trying to order you in, trying to it was bad because you're not even looked at like a human, let alone a public servant. More so, how can I make them money?
Right.
So I wasn't handling it right. And then that's where it kind of got into that's where I got into more creative stuff to kind of help me cope. So then I started playing with the drones, and that's how I got into photography and stuff. But I did pass the paramedic class, and then somehow passed my test the first time. Became the licensed paramedic because they changed it from certificate to license not that long ago. But the stress of that.
So talk about rock bottom.
There's been a few of those.
Yeah.
So if we kind of, not to go backwards, but like in my EMS career, so I have 2 half sisters, Amanda and Gabrielle. I transported Gabrielle after she overdosed on pills. We had a tube in her throat. She was on a ventilator. From Winchester down to Richmond, and that was about the time I transferred to Richmond. And then, I watched Amanda deal with meth because she got into a self-medicating phase and stuff, and and now both of them are they don't even smoke, they're healthy. Amanda got her kids back. She's helping with the program that helped her, you know. And then I'm seeing like cousin, cardiac arrest, drugs. Although I guess he was clean from the heroin for like a year, and then part of heroin, after a while, it can cause enlarged brain. Mm-hmm. So that neuro causes seizures. So seizure, cardiac arrest. Worked him, got his pulse back, took him to the hospital, called the family. Hey, he's at the hospital. But see, I wasn't close to any of the family. More for this, I don't go to holidays and stuff.
Right.
More for those reasons, you know.
But it still had to be hard seeing this.
It was still hard seeing it. Yeah. And then, like, you know, fire department, we had a guy shoot himself in the park, a block from my house, and I went down there and said bye to him. You know, saw the hole in his head and everything else, and I'm like, can't blame you, really. You know, because society sometimes can be really freaking harsh on somebody.
Yeah.
And he was in addiction as in everything else too. Alcohol, working in the same place and dealing with the same toxic shit. Yeah. So, seen that dude's hole in his head and then, went for a while, you know, and you have a lot of people, social media is hard. Mm-hmm. I love social media and I always have it. Makes me a lot of money right now, but that's how we're here.
Right.
That's how we're here. But it's hard because people do get on there. And like you said, you saw my video or whatever. Well, yesterday I changed it to like only me because I went through this phase of like, man, I shouldn't have put that out there. And then like an hour later, I'm like, fuck it, I'll put it back out there.
And what people need to understand, the video you're referring to, you know, 500 days sober, right?
Yeah.
You went through a very dark, deep time where you went missing, right?
Yeah. So that's. So, man, you see people talk about, like, you see people on social media that's like, is this legit or do they just need the attention?
Right. Is it for real?
So there's a fucking balance there, man. And so many people ride on that stuff. And then just one day, one night, I was just like, screw it. Like, I really don't care about the fire department because it doesn't care about you. Like, you could die today. He's going to post your job tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Before your obituary. For everybody watching, he works for him. So, but do you know what I mean, though? So I'm struggling hard. I end up at the Coney Island just in tall boys and tickets. And, man, I start blasting some nasty text messages to people. And then I woke up to pop, pop, pop. And I was in a hotel room in Rushville. Don't remember driving there. Don't remember why. And it was the police department and the sheriff's department. And I was like, shit. And so I answered the door and they were like, are you Kevin? And I'm like, yeah. And they were like, people are looking for you. I'm like, so apparently I didn't turn my phone off, and they pinged my phone and found me. And it was kind of like the police chief down there. He was like, I've seen you before, man. He's like, do you do videography or something? And I was just like, yeah. I did, because I made a virtual tour down there a long time ago. Well, part of IB Tech is it was the Rushville location, the virtual tour, so the 360 stuff. And they sit there and they talked to me for a while, and then what was cool is they didn't drag me off by my ears to the hospital like they could have. What normally happens, right? They were like humans, but there was like 8 of them, man. It was like a SWAT team. I'm like, I did scared. Like, who I kill, man?
What did I do?
Because I don't remember from the Coney to there. I'm like,
Yeah.
I could have killed somebody driving.
Yeah.
So I was scared shitless, and they were patting down my room and making sure I didn't have sharp objects or whatever. And then there's a little team called CISM, Critical Incident Stress Management. They came in there. They came down there and talked to me, and that's what they do, I guess, with first responders is. But it's usually after we see bad things, right? And it's not, and that's the misconception. It's not what you see; it's how it's handled.
Right.
Right. I've seen dead babies. I've worked on dead babies, pumped on their chests, took them to the hospital, they died. I've seen all that shit. It's how it's handled. It's how you're supported. If there is none, then that's where the problem. It's not what you see.
Right.
So they came in and talked to me, and he was like, what do you want to do? I don't know. Like, I have no, I just want to like sleep and not wake up, bro. Like, what do you mean what I want to do? And so he was like, well, what if you give me your keys so you can't go anywhere, and then you just stay here for 2 days, and we'll come bring you food or whatever and check on you and stuff. So they did. And then he came back and drove me home and everything a couple days later. But when we left, like, there was a cop sitting outside. So I was like, fuck. They sat there, like, just to make sure I didn't leave.
To make sure you were okay.
Right. Because they could have, like, just hauled me out to the hospital, ID'd me, which that's what usually happens 90% of the time, 99% of the time to people, right? And that just makes it worse. They don't do anything.
So for you to see that cop, did that hit home?
Because I was like, that dude kind of cared.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or the police chief that created it detailed just.
Yeah. Just for you.
Yeah.
Because he cared.
Right.
And, you know, man, you're in a hotel room. You don't know how you got there. SWAT team comes in and wakes you up. You know, I'm sure in your mind you feel like you're spiraling out of control.
Oh, yeah.
You know, no direction. Where you going? That's bottom.
Right. It wasn't the last bottom.
So you come out of that. Then what?
So from that, the CISM team recommended, recommended as in he said, hey, I'm going to come pick you up Monday and take you to the therapist that we work with. And they specialize in EMDR, which is for PTSD. So they take me to Greenfield. He takes me the first time, but he doesn't go in there, nothing. He's cool. And, so I see this lady and she explains this process, and she's like, most of your appointments are just going to be us talking until I know you're far enough from the ledge, because the EMDR will pull you really close to the ledge. So EMDR is, you do it with your eyeballs, and they use it in the military for PTSD. That day she's like, oh, you have PTSD and anxiety and depression. And she put the word severe between all of them. So I'm like, oh, great.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah.
But then later on, I'm like, well, every American does. So hey, I'm not that odd. I'm not that big an oddball.
Yeah.
But they also had me go to a nurse practitioner, and she prescribed me I'll think of it.
Yeah. A certain type of medication.
Yeah, for my anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. She probably prescribed that to me and everything else. So they had a plan for me, right? And then so they put me off on like a paid leave or something. And I don't know if they did it right or something, because like a few weeks go by and then I get a letter saying that I'm violating a rule by not staying in my house during my leave. Because my therapist is like, go do camera stuff, go do photography, go do video, run your business, do your side hustle.
Yeah.
She said, that's going to help you overcome all this stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So at that time, I was doing stuff for the hospital and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, I'll go do that. But they were sending me these letters that I was supposed to stay in my house if I'm sick. I'm like, whatever, then make it unpaid. I don't know.
Right.
You guys figure that shit out.
Right.
And I didn't want to mess with them at all. But so I went through all of that. And then like my 4th or 5th week of therapy, they sent me a letter saying that they they sent me to a fit for duty test like 3 times in this period, where I'd have to go see the public safety psychiatrist, and then be ran through the ringers. And he was actually really cool with me. And he was like, you're not going back.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Right.
You're not going back right now. And then they told me they wanted me to go to a fireman's rehab in Florida. And at that time, I'm like, I just started my therapy. We haven't even started the EMDR part, right? And then I couldn't play with my cameras anymore too if I went down there. So I was like, no, I want to, like, the SISM team, which you guys implement on everything, wanted me to go to this therapist. We haven't even started the EMDR process. So then, like, a few weeks later, phone call, you need to hand in a resignation letter. So I'm like, deuces. If I can make $1 doing something else, I'm not dealing with any of this shit again.
Right.
But in the middle of all that leave too, back in alcohol, right?
So even though you were at bottom, I mean, essentially suicidal, right?
It got there.
It comes back.
Right. Back on alcohol. Oh, Prozac, that was the medication. So back on alcohol, but I was using it as a social tool. So I'd go to Legends.
Yeah.
Drink. And I would be like this. I remember the day, another rock bottom. I was on the high and I was filming an event over in Eaton. And I left there, didn't have anything to do, didn't talk to anybody, like, because I don't have like an everyday person, I guess. I didn't, or whatever. But I like to talk. I like to meet people and talk. So bartenders. What's up? How you doing?
Yeah.
Ugly, cute, whatever. I'll still talk.
Right.
Cute, even better. Right. So I popped into the stable.
Oh yeah.
Right. Before I knew everything about it. But it was cool. I mean, they had the Crown Apple, and I'd drink Crown Apple straight on the rocks. So popped in there, and I think I still had my like global media shirt on, and I was drinking Crown Apple, and then I called some friends that I did hang out with when I was in that toxic circle of friends. And they came over there, and we just kept drinking, having a good time. Energy goes high. We come back to Richmond, party more. I'm drunk. Go to drop me off. And it's kind of like when you hit home after a night out, and now you're by yourself and everything else. So as soon as we walked in, I don't know what triggered me other than I was extremely intoxicated. I grabbed my 9mm from behind the thing and then ran out in my front yard because I was going to pop one in my head. And I pulled it back, and my Jeremy tackled me, and like I didn't fire a shot, but he tackled me. He was able to get the gun out of my hand, and yeah, that would have been if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. That was scary, and that was real scary. And I woke up the next day, and I had a broken toe from the fight. I didn't punch him or nothing. He didn't punch me, but we wrestled.
Yeah.
I had a broken toe, and I had a 9mm shell laying next to me. Not fired off, but
Right.
In my bed, hungover. I'm like,
Yeah.
just hating everything about me. everything about me. And I was scared. And I was like, I didn't talk to him for a long time. I didn't know what to say to people. I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And then I ran into him a month later, and he's like, yeah, I broke my ribs on your landscaping rocks. When he was
Broken toe for
Yeah,
you.
you got my toe.
He got broken ribs, and unfortunately, I think he's still living hard. But so that's like the sobriety thing, man. 500 days ago, like, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, what I don't have in life. It's like, but I have to be sober.
Yeah. Was that the day when you decided?
That was long before that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was long before that. Actually, I don't think it was like a boom sober. Like, I don't think it was a event that caused it. I think I was finally just like tired of like not performing at 100% of my life, because it does slow you down, right? Like 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you're at Legends talking about all the big things you're going to do in life. But now after 3 or 4, I'm still doing them.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
So, you know, 500 days ago from what, Saturday?
Yeah.
How's that feel?
It's good. It's really good because, like I said, I still struggle really hard. But I can't fix that without being sober. And like I tell people on some days that your sobriety might be all you have. You know, so there's something always there. No matter how dark everything else is, no matter how much the anxiety, depression's pumping, or how lonely you feel, or how empty you feel, you still got your sobriety to hang on to, because you know, if you break that, it's gone, it's done. So
Tell me about faith.
there's a higher power. Yeah.
Have you ever leaned on it?
I think I have.
Yeah.
Quite a few times.
I mean, in the depths where you've been in your life multiple times, and, you know, addiction and the roller coaster ride up and down and up and down. And I mean, you've heard I don't know what this is, 15 or 16 episodes, 16. You've heard, you know, the people that we've had in here, and we talk a lot about faith. And as I hear you telling, you know, your story and where you've been and the depths that you've been at, I can't help but think how important sobriety is for you, and that you recognize that. But, you know, to also recognize that there is a higher power, and that, you know, I don't know how Ben feels, but when we walked in here for the first time, I was like, man, this is a pretty cool place. And talking to you, and, you know, we kind of had a similar conversation the first time we met here, and hearing your story, and, you know, and I can feel the hurt when you talk. I mean, I can feel the hurt, and whatever, you know, whether that's from childhood or whoever or whatever has wronged you, and the alcohol and all those things. But I hope that you recognize, and you look around here, that you are important, and that you're doing a lot of good things for a lot of people. And, you know, I wanted to have you on to tell your story, because it's way different than anything I've ever experienced in my life. But I recognize that there's a lot of people out there who deal with exactly what you deal with on a daily basis. Have you heard Ed Milet's story about his dad?
I don't think so.
So for those that don't know, Ed Milet, he is, I think he's got the #1 podcast, business, entrepreneurship, motivational podcast in the world right now. And Ed's dad was an alcoholic. And Ed tells a story. In fact, we just heard it at this Life Surge event we went to. He was on stage, and got to meet him. And but he talks about when he was a kid, how he could tell if his dad had been drinking beer or beef eaters when he walked in the door. And if he was drinking beer, he would, as a young kid, I think we're talking 6, 7 years old, he would try to stop him at the door so that he couldn't make it to the liquor cabinet, because he knew that if he made it to the liquor cabinet, it was going to be a pretty rough night for his mom. And so he took that role on to try to, distract his dad and talk about, he played baseball and all these things that he did in his day so that his dad wouldn't make it to the liquor cabinet. And his dad finally hit rock bottom and made the decision one day that he was going to stop drinking. And Ed told the story at the Life Surge event, and I've heard him tell it on his podcast many times, where he was riding with his dad one day and his dad started crying and says, "Eddie, I'm gonna quit drinking. I recognize that it's not good for me. It's not good for your family, and I'm not going to do this." And Ed said, "Well, are you done forever?" And he said, "I'm not saying I'm done forever, but I'm done today. Tomorrow's a new day, and I'm going to not drink tomorrow too. But every day is going to be a struggle because it's an addiction, just like you said, And that's not something that I've faced. I haven't faced an addiction like that, but I have friends who have, family members who have, and so I recognize it's not just one of those things you can turn off, right? You can't turn it off, and I know for you, and especially after seeing your video that you posted on Saturday, sitting in that hotel room, and I could just I can hear the struggle in your voice, talking about 500 days of sobriety and what that's like for you, and then to hear your story growing up, I can see why you went down that path. But I hope and I pray that you keep going every day and that you recognize you are making a difference in people's life, and that I'm grateful. I think Ben is grateful that you're here, because it allows us to get your story out and other people's story out, because there's other people going through exactly what you went through. And until you hear that story and you're vulnerable enough to where you say, I still deal with this every day.
Oh yeah.
Maybe every hour. I don't know. And I'm sure there's different triggers in your life where somebody says something, or you drive by a certain bar and you think about, whatever, right? It's a battle.
It is, and it is every hour, and there are triggers, and it's about self-respect and knowing what you have to avoid. I still have loved ones, friends that still, live them lifestyles. They can balance it, I guess, that I still want to see, but I also recognize, like, hey, I'm going to go home now. Like, I'm good. I'm going to go home. And those close friends, like 3 of them, totally understand if I just dip. Don't even say bye or nothing. If I would just sneak out and go home and play on my computer or something. They get it. They totally get it. So that's what's really cool. And I have a whole, basically a whole country club, rooting me on, even though they're all drinking.
Right.
But I'm drinking my Shirley Temple.
Right.
But I'll go down there and have dinner, and I'm there long enough to socialize a little bit, and then I roll out.
Right.
And then it's self-respect and just knowing when to bounce. And then, if people make you feel weird, fuck them.
Right.
It's you. It's not, it's your battle that you have to fight. Right. So
yeah,
that's what's crazy.
The other thing Ed Milet always says is you're most qualified in life to help the person you used to be. Right. So whether there's one person out there who's facing alcoholism in their darkest, deepest moments, but they hear your story, and to recognize it's not easy. It's not just going to be the light switch that changes, but it's a daily battle. I think it's important, and I appreciate you sharing that story.
Hopefully I don't crash your podcast. Get taken off the air.
No, man, I think it's good. It's definitely unique to any other story that we've heard on this for sure. But I think it's equally as important, if not more important, than all those stories, because alcohol in this day and age is almost celebrated like it's something you got to do to have fun.
Well, it's like I mentioned in my video. Like if I told you I don't drink water, you're like, well, okay, whatever.
Right.
But if I tell you I don't drink this poison, you're like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
You know what I mean? So we're so, this society is so dependent on drugs.
Yep.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And it's sad. I wish and that's what I'm trying to do right now. Go out life raw and fix everything. The deep causes of all my issues. Although I know a lot of them you're not going to be able to fix. A lot of them you inherit.
Right.
But so many people mask their 9-to-5 toxic workplace with alcohol at 5 p.m. You know, and they hate every day until the weekend.
Yep.
And then they party on the weekend, and then it's like, it doesn't have to be like that.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is, and I guess that's why we're different.
That's right. That's right. Well, you got any closing words of advice, any words of wisdom to offer anybody out there?
Man, be yourself, know yourself, stay self-aware, and make the changes that you need to make, you know, because no one else can do it for you.
It's important.
And don't forget the power of vulnerability, right?
The power of vulnerability.
I mean, that's
right.
That's the way you change lives.
I've learned to like say screw it, just peel back everything. And what's great is people are afraid to talk sometimes about anything bad because they might lose business or lose friends or lose family. But guess what? You lose the right people.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Flip side, you gain the right people.
Yep.
I've lost 6-figure accounts in healthcare marketing because of my whole life, right? Good, because I realized they are extremely toxic. I've gained relationships out of this stuff, right? And then it's also made it's a huge burden off of your shoulders when you feel comfortable to share everything.
I agree 100%. I think, again, we talk about it almost every episode about the podcast, about how, you know, what a struggle it was for me to do this, to be vulnerable, right?
Right.
You
Just
know?
to do the podcast.
Yeah, just
right?
to do the podcast. And, you know, how rewarding it has been to not only hear, you know, our guest stories, but to get those phone calls or to have somebody come up to you, you know, at a sporting event, or you get a phone call or a text, you know, and they say, man, it's so awesome to hear these stories because such and such is dealing with this, or I'm dealing with this. And, you know, I never knew that about this person.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, especially this day and age, to be vulnerable because, you know, of how social media is and how everybody portrays themselves as this perfect, living this perfect life. And it's really not, that's not the case.
Well, could you imagine? So yeah, social media, media puts that out there that we can only share the good stuff. Can you imagine if everybody in this world was comfortable of sharing everything about themselves? Everyone would, at the grocery store, you wouldn't just be standing in line not talking to anybody. Like, everyone would be friends.
Yeah. You'd be hugging them.
Right.
Saying, hey, I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Right.
And I went through this too, or whatever.
Unity. We would unite like none other if you're just able to share something. If you're just but we all are afraid to, because we're afraid of the stigma. We're afraid that you know, because of stigma, married, kids. I don't have any of that. Right. So I already feel like I'm missing out. Right, because I don't have what you're supposed to have. Society puts that on you, where you have to go to college, you have to have a degree before you're 22, then you have to be married before you're 25, and you have to have a kid before you're 30. And then what's that happen? My last serious girlfriend, she went through that whole thing, right? So college, career, kid, married, kid. But you do it so fast because what? You have a kid with the wrong person. You marry the wrong person, have a kid with, now divorced, now single mom, now You know what I mean? All because we go upon society's expectations.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I feel like. That's what this podcast too. You know, you talk about people don't want to open up, don't want to feel, you know, vulnerable and stuff like that. Like it's just, I feel like it helps people open up, you know, like talking to people that have reached out to us. You know, well, I shared this with so-and-so because I feel like, you know, they don't want to talk about it, but they hear you guys talking about it, they hear a story. So I think your story is really powerful, you know?
Yeah, I agree. You're right. You know, people come up and will tell you things that you never would have thought of having a conversation with that person in a million years. And they come and they say, hey, I heard this episode and I just wanted you to know how impactful it was because such and such is going through it. And, you know, it's really been just super rewarding for sure.
Cool. Well, keep doing your podcast.
Yeah, man.
Keep producing our podcast.
like Dedikumbo back there on the camera. So we've talked about this before. People hear your story. You might just, like one person, you might get like 10 viewers or something on something. But if one person hears a good message from everything you're saying, then you might have just saved one person's life.
That's right.
And I've talked to that about, there's the Jay Creek Cloggers down in North Carolina. So Zeb Ross, the blue shirt dancing guy.
Yeah.
So I talked to his mom about this. We did an interview and because when I was in my really dark times, you just scroll through TikTok and I see this guy just like dancing, clogging, like having a good old time. And so she told me the story. She's like, I actually had somebody email me, Kevin, and said that like he was about to kill himself. And then he said he just started watching our videos over and over and over. I was like, did I email you? It wasn't me, but like one person, just one message, one person.
And that was our goal starting off.
Yeah, the one.
Yeah, we just wanted to find one person that we could help. And if we recorded 2 episodes and we helped one person, that was a success. So, Kevin, where can people find you? What's your socials, website?
Oh, they can Google me, and it's
not your rap sheet.
right. Don't know I don't have a rap sheet, but and so the business globalmediavr.com, globalmediaenterprise.org, all the same place. They can find that all the socials. TikTok, I run shorts on from everybody's podcast, so they can catch everybody on the TikTok. Yeah, I mean, I like to engage on all the platforms. TikTok's fun. That's where actually, so.
Yeah, your shirt's awesome.
Demons behind me. So it's just really cool that you asked me to do this today because this came in while I was in LA this weekend. This was shipped, but I bought this on TikTok.
Okay.
So I was like just scrolling and it was a TikTok shop because, you know, you can put shops on there.
Yeah.
And it's all about the outliving your past.
Okay.
So it was like, I mean, I'm gonna run home and put that shirt on.
Yeah.
For those who can't read it says demons behind me, and so is
the past.
Past, yeah. And their invoice, they like, thank you, Kevin, and from Kelly, and like they signed the invoice and shit.
Yeah.
So I would like to probably know their story.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great.
So.
Well, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for telling your story. I know it's not easy. There's parts there I could tell, you know, that were tough for you, but somebody's getting better today because of hearing your story. So thank you. And everybody listening, again, we appreciate your ears. We say it every time, like, share, subscribe, all those great things. If you got something from Kevin's message today. And, you know, we look forward to the upcoming podcast. We've got some interesting guests coming up, a 95-year-old, my wife's grandmother next episode. So we're excited. She's got papers all over her kitchen table where she's going to tell us how much she paid for her first car and, you know, growing up through the Depression and all those things. So it's going to be a pretty cool story. So, thanks for listening. Go out and be tempered.
Hi, my name is Allie Schmidt. This is my dad, Dan. He owns Catron's Glass.
Thanks, Allie. Things like doors and windows go into making a house. But when it's your home, you expect more, like the great service and selection you'll get from Catron's Glass. Vinyl replacement windows from Catron's come with a lifetime warranty, including accidental glass breakage replacement. Also ask for custom shower doors and many other products and services. Call 962-1636. Locally owned with local employees for nearly 30 years.
Catron's Glass, the clear choice.